Not only am I going to give you 8 players to buy low, but I'm actually going to rank them from most appealing to least appealing. Now, the guys at 8 and 7, the reason they're this low is just because if your league mates know what they're doing, they're not accepting any offer. I mean, they are going to just laugh at you when you approach. But Garrett Wilson and Amari St Brown would be phenomenal buy low candidates if you're playing in a league where maybe somebody's going to overreact week 1. Maybe somebody saw, I don't know, Amari St Brown do absolutely nothing on Sunday night. Garrett Wilson and the Jets just kind of get shut down against the Niners. But I do want to be on record kind of just letting you know that these players will be much, much better going into the future. If you're looking at the Jets matchup against the Niners, this is arguably the toughest defense you could play against. This is a team that had to travel cross country to go out there and play that Monday night game. But if you look at the usage here in New York, it was absurd. Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, and Allen Lazard were the only players to even touch the ball in this game. Now, yes, once Tyrod Taylor got in, that changed the things a bit. But no, this is the most concentrated offense in the NFL where targets are only going to be funneled to Wilson. Carries are only going to be going to Breece Hall. And if you're telling me that Garrett Wilson is a safe projection for a 30% team target share in an Aaron Rodgers-led offense, that is a wide receiver that is a very safe wide receiver one rest of season. Now, of course, I'm not saying that Aaron Rodgers is going to be prime Aaron Rodgers yet again, but I do think that he'll be a much better quarterback than what we saw against the Niners, just because it was his first game ever as a Jet. He didn't play it all last year, and this was about the toughest matchup you could possibly have. Now, in the case of Amon-Ra St. Brown, I understand people are going to panic here as well, and I think the reason people are really panicking when it comes to St. Brown is just because it was that Sunday night game. It was that primetime game. People were going into the week and maybe they went, oh, okay, I just need 10 points from Amon-Ra St. Brown on Sunday and I'm going to win this matchup. And St. Brown gives you legitimately nothing. But if you look at the underlying usage here, Amon-Ra St. Brown still runs a route on every single Jared Goff dropback. Amon-Ra St. Brown is still the wide receiver he was last year. The man gets absolutely paid. The Detroit Lions are fully invested. And while, yes, Jameson Williams absolutely dominates week 1 in terms of just the raw amount of fantasy points scored, you have to think about the roles and the profile of these wide receivers. Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown aren't necessarily competing against each other. These are two complementary pieces where Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be that guy that's operating close to the line of scrimmage. He's going to be getting those short yardage dump offs, whereas Jameson Williams is going to be the wide receiver that is a deep ball threat. So yes, occasionally Jameson is going to have a blow up game. Going into the future, I would expect that, honestly, you have more blow-up games from Amon-Ra St. Brown, and he is significantly more consistent, whereas Jameson, on the other hand, is actually going to be a wide receiver that I think is extremely volatile. And I know it's kind of funny to say that because the exact opposite thing just happened week 1, but I mean, we have years of data to look at, which I think, honestly, just safely proves how strong of an option Amon-Ra St. Brown is. But going over to our next wide receiver, the 6th best buy this week is actually going to be Malik Neighbors. Now, remember, I was the guy screaming, for the love of God, do not drop Malik Neighbors in round 2 in underdog drafts. He's arguably the worst priced receiver because of how bad his quarterback play will be and the historical data showing that if you're in a garbage offense at wide receiver, it's hard to put up that elite level finish. But I've seen people in the comment section absolutely panicking when it comes to Malik Neighbors, specifically with how bad Daniel Jones looked this past Sunday. And while we were saying coming into the year that this was going to be a bad offense, while we were saying coming into the year, look at Vegas sportsbooks, they're telling you Daniel Jones is a bum. I don't think Daniel Jones is going to be this bad all season. I don't think you were going to get another game with Jones of 42 pass attempts for 186 passing yards, 0 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. You have brighter days on the horizon. You're going to actually have some touchdowns scored in New York, even if it's not a ton. And if you look at Malik Neighbors, his first game in his NFL career, he cements, yes, I was an elite prospect, and at the same time, I'm going to be an elite NFL talent. While you only have 186 passing yards in this offense, Malik Neighbors accounts for 66 of those yards. Malik Neighbors comes in immediately post a 30% market share number here in New York. You go into the future, if you see this offense improve whatsoever, I think Malik Neighbors is still a very safe bet to be a top 24 wide receiver. So no, probably shouldn't have been going in round 2 of underdog drafts. Yes, if you're in your regular home league and you can buy him as a wide receiver 3 because people are just completely off of Daniel Jones, I think that there's only room to go up for the rookie who is already dominating market share numbers and what was the league's worst offense this past week. Now, something that I dominated with week 1 was actually my pick'em calls on Underdog. I so far am up $200 on Underdog pick'ems this year, not because I'm any good at them, but just because I am taking advantage of all the promotions they are running. I'm going to keep you up to date on all these promos. Today, they're actually dropping a CeeDee Lamb free pick more than less than half a total yard. Thursday, they're dropping a 30% profit boost token. Friday, you get a random special promo. Saturday, you have college football discounts. And Sunday, you have NFL football discounts as well. So make sure you take advantage of these every single day. If you are new to Underdog Fantasy and use code FLOCK, you are going to get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. And also with code FLOCK, I will actually review your fantasy football team for you for free over there on flockfantasy.com. But let's move over to a wide receiver that was one of my most drafted guys in Underdog drafts, going as a wide receiver 4. I'm locking and loading him as a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3 this week in his second NFL game ever with Keon Coleman. Now with Keon, what did the haters tell me all offseason? They said, Mason, he's going to be viable in 2025. He's too raw. He's not going to have a role. Are you seeing what just happened week 1? Week 1, his first NFL game ever for the guy that was quote-unquote too raw. He plays 45 snaps. The next highest receiver plays 36 in this offense. The next guy after that, Khalil Shakir, only plays 33. Keon Coleman runs the most routes in this offense with 27. Keon Coleman draws the most targets in this offense with 5. Keon Coleman came in day 1 as a rookie. He has cemented that he is the wide receiver 1 in Buffalo. The next argument that people told me is, they said, Mason, the sports books are wrong. The Bills aren't going to be a top 5 offense this year. Stop just looking at the sports books. Diggs is gone. Gabe Davis is gone. Well, to me, I'm listening to these sports books coming into the season, telling us that this was still going to be one of the league's best offenses. And at the same time, seeing Josh Allen go out there and score 4 touchdowns week 1, I think nothing's changed. I think our suspicions were confirmed. Keon Coleman is the wide receiver 1 in one of the best offenses in the NFL. I don't really think Matt Collins is someone I'm worried about. I'm not really worried about Shakir. I'm not really worried about Curtis Samuel. Keon Coleman is that dude. I think he's a wide receiver 2 rest of season. Now, going over to the Cincinnati Bengals, I know this is an absolute dumpster fire that people are very afraid of. That's why T. Higgins is the 4th best buy this week, because I think you can get him at a massive discount. The Bengals and Joe Burrow look horrendous against the New England Patriots. You can go through and you can look at what this team has done since Zach Taylor has been the head coach in weeks 1 and 2, and they are always garbage. This is a coaching issue. This is just lack of preparation coming into the season. And what has happened every single year outside of the season where Joe Burrow got injured? Every year, the Cincinnati Bengals have dramatically improved after the first couple weeks. I'm expecting that Joe Burrow and this Bengals offense are still one of the best offenses in the NFL. And I know that's very tough to say after week 1, but there is so much drama surrounding Cincinnati with the Jamar Chase holdout, with the T. Higgins hamstring injury, that once Higgins is back and once Chase is fully situated, I still think that T. Higgins is a wide receiver 2 in fantasy. And from what I've seen at the moment, it looks like people are full-blown panicking on T. Higgins. You know what I'm actually going to do right now is I'm going to go to the Flock League and I'm going to send Avery a little bit of a trade-off. We're going to come up with this together because honestly, I do really just want to put out a feeler with Higgins pretty much every league that I'm in right now and see what the actual cost would be, because I think it's not going to be bad whatsoever. So I just sent Avery 2 separate offers. I offered him Amari Cooper for T. Higgins, and I offered him Terry McLaurin for T. Higgins, just because if I'm looking at Higgins versus the passing volume that's going to be there in Washington and versus the passing volume that's going to be there in Cleveland, I am way more confident in the Cincinnati Bengals figuring this out in the long term. So yeah, if you had McLaurin, if you had Amari, I would definitely recommend pivoting over to Higgins. Now, somebody that screwed me in the Flock League week 1, that I think will improve as the season goes on was Caleb Williams. I'm not telling you to buy low on Caleb Williams. Instead, I'm going to be looking at the wide receiver 1 in this offense, and I think that DJ Moore is a very appealing target right now. Because if you are looking at DJ Moore, this is a wide receiver that had the most receiving yards with about a 30% team market share in Chicago, 36 receiving yards out of 93 passing yards for Caleb. Obviously, doesn't do anything in fantasy, but if we get the improvement from Caleb Williams, a rookie quarterback that was widely seen as the unanimous QB1 in this year's draft class, if we just see natural progression from the rookie quarterback over the next few months, I think that DJ Moore, if he is able to maintain this market share number, is going to explode in fantasy and still has a higher ceiling than where he finished last season, especially now that we know that Keenan Allen was already dealing with some mysterious injury that it's very difficult to deem exactly what is wrong with Keenan. But you also have Roma Dunze getting banged up, which is just absolutely brutal for Caleb Williams. It's going to make the overall offensive ceiling lower here, but it's going to safely maintain the DJ Moore market share numbers in Chicago over the next few weeks. I think it'd be a phenomenal trade target. Now, our next guy that I may go and send an offer for is Brandon Aiyuk. I'm actually going to pull this up right now because in the Flock League, I know Zach was trying to sell Brandon Aiyuk before week 1. And after the week 1 game on Monday nights, where Brandon Aiyuk does absolutely nothing, I think that there's a chance that you're able to get Aiyuk at that discount. And honestly, the expectation for Aiyuk Monday night should have been extremely low. Drew one of the toughest matchups you're ever going to find. Drew Sauce Gardner, drew the New York Jets defense. And at the same time with this, he missed pretty much all training camp. He had really no preparation going into this week. Reports were coming out before the game saying that Brandon Aiyuk was going to be limited, blah, blah, blah. The reality of the situation is Brandon Aiyuk ran 27 routes. Deebo Samuel ran 27 routes. So Brandon Aiyuk was a full-time player. Like, don't just say like, oh, okay, this is him playing half a role and going into the future, he's going to be playing more snaps. That's not the bull case. The bull case is this will be an offense that possibly has to throw the ball a little bit more going into the future. This is a wide receiver that is an elite level talent. You can see that based off the contract that he was paid from the Niners this offseason. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to offer Zach Devonta Smith straight up for Brandon Aiyuk. Obviously, Smith had a much better week 1, but I think Brandon Aiyuk still has the upside to potentially be the wide receiver 1 in this offense. And at the end of the day, I don't see that same ceiling with Smith. Now, the number 1 trade target in my mind this week is going to be Trey McBride relatively easily. Now, I wish that I was smart enough to say coming into the season, oh, Trey McBride being drafted around Mark Andrews, Dalton Kincaid, McBride's the guy you want. McBride's the guy you want. Sadly, I was not smart enough to say that. Sadly, I was not able to identify that. But now we can look at what's happened with all the elite level tight ends. And as soon as we had the Thursday night game, we immediately moved Trey McBride up to tight end 2. And I think Trey McBride's a very easy rank at tight end 2 rest of season. You're looking at the volume that he had in Arizona this week. Trey McBride actually saw 9 targets. Trey McBride led the Arizona Cardinals in targets at the tight end position. At the same time, Trey McBride goes out and he runs 34 routes in comparison to Marvin Harrison Jr. at 36. So McBride is going to be involved on every single Kyler Murray dropback. I do think that Harrison's going to improve going into the future. And I would like to include Harrison potentially as a buy low candidate here. But the reality is I don't think anybody's going to be selling Marvin Harrison Jr. at a discount. Instead, if you pivot over to Trey McBride, I think that this is how you capture the Kyler Murray bounce back and Kyler Murray progressing as the season goes on. And if you notice what we are doing with this list, if you are noticing what we are doing with these buy low candidates, I am identifying wide receivers that we loved the roles that they had week 1. They confirm they are going to see 25, 30% of their passing offense going in their direction. However, their quarterbacks disappointed and the passing volume was not there, but we can possibly expect the volume to be better in future weeks. Reiterating this, Garrett Wilson with Aaron Rodgers. I think Rodgers will have more than 167 passing yards a week going forward. I think that bodes well for Garrett Wilson. Malik Neighbors, Daniel Jones. I think Daniel Jones will have more than 0 passing touchdowns per week going into the future. I think that bodes well for Malik Neighbors. Amari St Brown, Jared Goff. I mean, yes, Jared Goff doesn't have a horrible day, but I think Goff could potentially lead the NFL in passing this year. I think St. Brown captures a lot of that offense. Keon Coleman, Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen has weeks with more than 232 passing yards going into the future. T. Higgins, Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow has weeks with more than 164 passing yards going into the future. DJ Moore, Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams has weeks with more than 93 passing yards going into the future. Brandon Aiyuk, Brock Purdy. I think Brock Purdy has weeks with more than 0 passing touchdowns going into the future. And then Trey McBride, Kyler Murray. I think Kyler Murray has weeks with more than 162 passing yards going into the future. So buy low after week 1 on these talented players that have secure roles that we got confirmation with in week 1 that are going to be in offenses that are much better than what they did this past week. But I think that's all I have for you. Really do appreciate you. Really hope that I was able to help you out with this video. And of course, I want to remind you, take advantage of those crazy Underdog promotions they are offering at the beginning of the season. Like I said, I won $200 on Underdog so far this year, literally only using the promos. I'm not any good at pick'ems, but the promos help out a ton. On Wednesday, you get the free CD Lamb pick, more than less than half total yard. Thursday, you get a 30% profit boost token. Friday, you have a random special promo. Saturday, you have college football discounts. Sunday, you have NFL discounts as well. Make sure you take advantage of that. Code FLOCK with the link in the description in the comment section will get you a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, at the same time, you are also going to be getting a free team review from yours truly on flockfantasy.com. Just make sure that your flockfantasy.com account has the same email address that you set up with Underdog Fantasy. That way, when I go through and I credit your team with that free team review voucher, I can find it. But thank you again. I really do appreciate you. Really hope you have a great day. And I really hope I get to check out your team in the live stream later tonight.